I'm so excited to be joined by Ginger Minj. You know Ginger from RuPaul's Drag Race Season 7, All-Star Season 2, and Season 6, and going to be coming to the Chicagoland area. So this is exciting. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Cage Aux Folles, let's talk a little bit about the show. What was the first time that you remember seeing it? Obviously, you know, the film version of The Birdcage, a lot of people remember seeing that movie as well, too. What was your first memory of this project?
So, of course, you know, in 1996, whenever The Birdcage came out, I was in my early teens, you know, so it was something that, to me, being from a small town, it was very taboo. But for some reason, my mother had it in her head she had to see this movie. So I got to go with her to watch this movie, and it just kind of changed my life. You know, I sat there and I was like, oh my gosh, this person is as flamboyant as I am. They love to dress up. And even when they are at their most dramatic, you can tell it is grounded in such reality from their heart. So I knew The Birdcage first. And then because I was in musical theater my whole life, one of my directors was like, oh, if you like The Birdcage, you'll love Cage Aux Folles. And so they gave me the cast album and a tour that had come through. They had the souvenir program. So I was obsessed with it. I was like, what could make The Birdcage better? Oh, yeah, musical numbers. So I became obsessed with that. At our local community theater when I was growing up, I was 18 and they decided they wanted to do Cage, and I was going to play Alben, and unfortunately there was so much pushback from the rest of the town, they canceled the show. So of course, me being 18 years old, I was like, this is the only opportunity I'm ever going to have to play this role. My life is over. And then I didn't do it until 20 years later, and now it feels like everything happens exactly when it's supposed to and how it's supposed to, because it's just the most perfect experience.
Oh, exactly. I mean, the Cage Aux Folles was actually one of the first, if not the first, musical that featured a gay couple in there. So this was a lot of people's first experience with seeing that, and especially with families going to see, you know, the movies, whether they loved Nathan Lane or Robin Williams, people let their guard down where they may not have been accepting of their family, but somehow got to enjoy this movie that, you know, kicked down a lot of doors for the community.
Yeah, well, I have a very good friend. His name was, well, her name was Miss Sammy. His name was Sam Singhouse, who was in the original Broadway production of Cage, did the entire run on Broadway, took it out on tour. Unfortunately, he passed away last year, but was doing that tap number up until the day he died. But it was always fun to have the conversations with him about how scared they were going into every single new town. This, you know, back in the 80s, this is crazy, you know?
Yeah.
They were going to every town thinking that they were going to be run out with pitchforks. But he said it was always so interesting to watch how kind of tightly clinched everybody was during the opening number, and by the end of the show there were these good old boys who had nothing in common with them other than the fact that they loved their family, up on their feet screaming and cheering. He said in the reception was the same everywhere they went. It would start with this wall up and you would just see it get chipped down during the show. And I think that that's really why the show has had such a long lasting legacy, is because we are still kind of chipping down those walls and those barriers. But this is a perfect opportunity for people to come in like The Birdcage and see it and go, oh, we're really not all that different after all.
Exactly. And that's what, you know, theater and these kind of productions, you know, do to our souls and do to our family and friends. You're going to be here at the North Shore Center for Performing Arts from March 10th through April 3rd. Tell us a little bit about the show and, you know, what we can expect.
So it's an all new production. And I know everybody always says, oh, come and see us. If you've seen it before, you'll see it in a whole new way. This is actually very true for this production. The whole thing kind of takes place in the world of the nightclub. So we have tables that are like on the set, and everything kind of comes out of the stage of the club. It's a little darker, it's a little grittier, but we're not losing any of the glamour or the pizzazz with it. It's such a fine line to walk because, you know, I saw both Broadway revivals. The 2004 revival was very glamorous, but had very little heart. And then the last revival had a whole lot of heart, but it was kind of ugly to look at. You know, it wasn't the prettiest. And I think that this production really kind of combines the best of both of those two types of versions of this show. And it finds something really new in it, something very timely, something that, we're dealing with all of these issues surrounding gender identity and sexuality and race. And this kind of deals with all of those things that were probably relevant 30 years ago when the show came out, but are even more relevant now. So I think that, as long as we continue to play it from the heart, people are going to come and watch this and really kind of see a reflection of what's going on around them in the world.
Oh, exactly. And as much as you hope that the world would change, some of those, topics that were just as strong in, the early 80s are just as relevant, today. So that's such an important piece to bring to the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's always been a good conversation starter, this show, and the things that it touches on. But I also think one of the main differences is that, all these years later, these decades later, we allow the conversation to start and to continue. Back in the day, especially dealing with somebody like my mother, she would have a very quick conversation about the things that she saw, but then she would just kind of shut it off and move to something else. This continues the conversation. It's something that will catapult everybody that sees it into really digging deep into the discussions about everything.
And then, something else that's also changing the conversation, RuPaul's Drag Race. Let's talk a little bit about that, because it's not, it's the fans, but then, somebody's mom or brother or dad or someone comes in and it's like, what are you watching? And then suddenly everybody gets, involved in the show. I mean, the amount of conversations I've had with people who necessarily didn't start off as fans, but now are addicted to All Stars, the UK, the regular seat, like everything, it's like, it's so great how like a show like this has just, opened up the world of love and, sparked those conversations.
I have such a huge fan base of dads. Dads love me, which is weird because my own dad didn't love me growing up. So now I have everybody else's dad in the world they are just obsessed with me. There was this one TikTok this guy who has a TikTok account, this older man, and he's married with wife and kids and all that kind of stuff. And for a long time, his TikTok was nothing but about me and how much he loved me. I think that it's so great. Drag Race is doing what Lacage and the Birdcage and all that did years and years ago. It's showing the world that our stories are just as valuable. Our stories are a lot more relatable than most people think going in. And that even if we have problems, we throw a little glitter on it, we talk them out, and we get over it.
And one of my highlights, I love Adele. The Snatch Game is always one of my favorites, and your performance was, a highlight of my RuPaul Drag Race, fandom. Did Adele ever reach out to you? Did anybody in her team ever say anything?
No. She never reached out to me, but she did make a comment in an interview not long after it that said that she wanted to meet the drag queen that played her on TV. And at that point, I was the only drag queen that had ever played her on TV. So I'm going to assume that meant she saw my performance and she liked it.
Were you planning to go out to Vegas to go see the show?
So I'm going out to Vegas to take over as host of Drag Race Live for a little while. So I was hoping that our paths would finally cross then, because I know she's such a huge fan of the drag world. But unfortunately, she's not going to be there.
She's not going to be there. But Cheryl Hull was in London, and Adele made a surprise appearance over there. Cheryl's coming to Chicago next week, which is going to be, a fun little tie-in as well, too.
Yeah, well, I already texted her. I was like, girl, I'm coming over. I hope you didn't wash your hands. I need a little bit of that Adele essence on me to rub off a little bit. She said she was so lovely and exactly what you would want her to be.
That's amazing, because it's like, you watch her on television, you watch her on the performances, and when you see somebody that exact same way, that just, that makes my day.
Well, it's like when I got to do Dumplin, I had been such a huge fan of Dolly Parton my whole life. So, everybody always tells you don't meet your heroes because they're going to disappoint you. Dolly Parton is one of the kindest people I've ever met. She is exactly like you want her to be, but even better. And the number one question I get from everybody, they're like, what does she smell like? She smells like the color pink. If that makes any sense. It's like flowers and cotton candy and all of these really beautiful, bright things. And just, the essence of Dolly Parton. It's just, she's so nice and so kind, and she refers to you by your name, and she holds you by the hand and looks you in your eyes. And she really taught me a lot about, you know, how you treat people and how you appreciate the people that appreciate you. And so I'm hoping that Adele is exactly like that, because of course she's somebody that I look up to and I love.
If I happen to see a photo, you know, after you're out in Vegas, I happen to see a photo, we're going to do another interview because we want to get the scoop after that. Let's go ahead and do it. A lot of Chicago talent here. Shea Coulee, Denali, Kim Chi, Silky Ganache, The Vixen. Are you friends with a lot of the talent and the contestants here from Chicago?
Yeah, well, you know, it is a sisterhood. We all do talk. We all spend time together. Some of us are closer than others, but I actually got very close with Kimora Hall. We were working on a couple of projects together, and she's so funny because it takes her an hour to put one line on her face, but it's the most beautiful line you've ever seen in your life. Meanwhile, it's taken me 20 minutes to put on my whole face, and it's just splattered and disgusting. But she is just so much funnier than I think people give her credit for being, and so much fun to be around. I love Shea. You know, our paths have crossed a lot, and I think we come from the same school of thought that, like, performances should be exciting, performances should be new, and performances should really speak to who you are as a person and what you believe and what you feel. Because as fun as drag is, I think that a lot of times, particularly the people who are now fans because of Drag Race, they don't realize how political drag has always been, and how, you know, drag queens are always kind of the ones that are in the front leading the march to make change within the community. And Shea is really, really good about being a voice for her community and fighting for change. And it's something that I really I see in her, I appreciate with her, and it's something that I strive to do myself.
There was a couple of rallies in the Chicagoland area, and Shea was always front and center and willing to do interviews and talk about it and putting herself out there. So, you know, we commend her and applaud her for doing that, because she is just such an inspiration here for, especially, you know, for the drag world and for the people here in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, I have a podcast that's called Local Queen, and I started it because I wanted to kind of give a platform to the girls that do work for their community and really fight for change for the people that are around them all the time, but maybe don't have that platform to really, like, lift their voice and get their message out there. So that's been the really fun thing for me to do. I actually, and when I was in Chicago, I interviewed Caramel DeVille, who is just fantastic and gives back to the community a lot. And I think that, you know, as great as Drag Race is, we do have to keep supporting those local girls, because they are our hometown sheroes. You know, like, they're the ones that are really leading the fight for us and keeping us entertained at the same time.
Doing both at the same time. Quickly, before we go, Southern Fried Sass, tell us a little bit about the new book.
Ooh, it's good. It's real good. I just read the first completed draft. It is this hybrid of my life story, which goes like this all the time. It is a roller coaster ride, but it's also tied together through some of the recipes that I've gotten, you know, from my grandmother, from my mother, and from different queens as I've traveled the world. Because I feel like food is the universal love language. You know, you can understand so much about somebody by the food that they share with you. Even if you can't understand what they're trying to say to you, you can really get the vibe with the food. So it was important for me to tell my story, but tell it in a way that I feel is relatable on a lot of different levels. So it's really fun. It's a cookbook. It's a memoir. It's a tell-all, because I am not holding back. I am spilling the tea. And it is going to be a really, 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 really fun ride.
Ginger, thank you so much for your time today. La Cage Aux Folles, March 10th through April 3rd, North Shore Center for Performing Arts. MusicTheaterWorks.com is where you can go ahead and get the tickets. We got the book to look forward to. If you're heading out to Vegas, you can go ahead and see, you know, Ginger out there later this year as well too. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to chat with me today.
Thank you. I've had a really good time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see you in Chicago soon, and we'll go to Portillo's.
Sounds good.
Deal.